Thank you, President Ripich. Thank you, members of the Board of Trustees, President Lori LaChance, members of the Society, and especially those from Bangor who have not only been my friends during my time living in Bangor, they have been people that I have looked up to, and they have indeed been my mentors and my friends. So I'm deeply humbled to be here today. I'm very happy to hear everyone talk about books. I was very fortunate that I grew up in a house with many books, but when I was little, I went to the library with my dad. We went once a week on Thursdays, I still remember. The library was just across the street, but that street happened to be a major highway, so I had to wait for Dad to come home from work before I could go. But times changed. Route 22 soon bypassed our little town. The library got a new building with better parking and was no longer across the street, and I could go to the library by myself. But things have just kept changing and changing. With technology and the internet, things have changed faster than anyone could ever agree, and it has happened in all our lives. Now there are people who say, why should we support libraries? And libraries are closing. School libraries are closing, academic libraries are closing, and public libraries are closing. It's a scary thing. After all, can't we get everything on the internet? Can't we get all our books from Amazon? Some ask, why should we pay good taxpayers' dollars just to support the homeless? Or all those elite people that go to the library, can't they buy their own books? There is still a need for libraries. The basic purposes of a public library are to provide its users books and other resources for continuing education, self-improvement, and recreation, to provide a place for the dissemination of ideas, and to collect and preserve the area's history and culture for future generations, and especially to provide the children in the service area the resources that will encourage them to read and to aid in helping them learn research skills which will be valuable to them in their later life. Working backwards from those purposes, I don't think there is anyone in the room who would argue against the importance of the third mission of early childhood literacy. In fact, our current politicians and business leaders have called for stronger initiatives to ensure that our children are engaged in early literacy programs. It's basic to growing a strong economy. Parents who take pleasure in books convey that pleasure to children. We need all adults to mentor that, to show that reading is something that is pleasurable. Children who associate pleasure with books enter our schools eager to read. Children who read or are read to in their preschool years are more successful in school. What could be more encouraging than to being cuddled while hearing a story? Public libraries have been part of that early literacy movement since the beginning of the 20th century. I bet many of you remember going to the library when you were a child. And I bet that you take your children or your grandchildren to the library now. Part of the new early literacy program calls for children to have read or have to read or to have been read to 1,000 books before they enter kindergarten. I think if public libraries had not been invented, trying to reach that goal would certainly cause them to be invented now. And you need that librarian there, someone with experience that can help you find what it is that you're looking for, even if it's only a little child saying, Mama, you know, I want that story about the wolf that chased that little girl, you know, honker-cha, honker-cha, honker-cha. If you don't know that story, it's a great story. Ask your children's librarian. Libraries are changing to meet the needs of today's families. More and more children go to daycare and preschools, so there's less and less time to find when that time to go to the library is. Schools have after-school programs. Families are busier than ever. And yes, there are smartphones and tablets and computers that take up more and more of our time. Libraries have had to change to meet those needs. They have different times for programs, they have different kinds of programs, and they know that just having books on the shelf won't drive people to come. Libraries need to be interactive, have crafts on hand, encourage making space, because libraries, after all, are connecting children and adults to ideas. And that's what it is, making a conversation between the generations. I'm not now, nor have I ever been a children's librarian, unfortunately, but it's a subject I could talk about for a long, long time. Unfortunately, I want to say a few more things before my time is up. Public libraries provide a place to find out about your community. It's that trusted place to go for information, a comfortable third space, that place not work nor home, to meet with others and to connect with ideas. Although much of the government information we need is now online, libraries help make it more accessible, either by placing it in a digital commons to keep it accessible, because many times something goes up on a web page, but 6 months later it's gone, and how do you find it? Or they have classes to help individuals use the technology to find this accessible information. There is a digital divide in this country, and the library is uniquely positioned to help close that gap. To apply for a job now, I don't know if you know this, but even at places like Walmart or McDonald's, you need to apply online, and you not only need to apply online, you have to have an email address. Libraries are that place where if you do not have the technology, if you do not have the wherewithal to connect to the internet, you can go and find it free. Finally, the traditional mission of the public library to provide its users books and other resources for continuing education, self-improvement, and recreation both changes and stay the same. In the 80s, having different resources meant having the paperback and the hardback copy. Then came audiobooks and videos. Now books and movies are streamed. Still, it's the public library that you can go. And it's the public library that makes sure that you have access freely to these and protects your censorship and your privacy. Resources are rarely free to libraries. Libraries are tremendously cooperative. In Maine last year, more than 1 million items were loaned from one library to another. They are always looking for ways to share collections, but finding funding for libraries is becoming harder and harder as city and town funds become scarce and libraries are viewed as unnecessary or as frivolous. It is my hope that funders contemplate that patron I always keep in mind, that fifth grader who comes to the library to learn everything he can about space travel or ancient Egyptians or even cartooning, or that fifth grader that's inside each of us that wants to know more, that is curious. What he finds in the library changes his life and that of our world. It only takes one idea, and that seed for that idea can be found at the library. Thank you.